said the Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman podcast could not survive alone on the new frontier. But we won't give up. And we are not alone anymore. We have committed to covering every episode, and that might be the biggest challenge of all. Welcome to Dr. QuinnCast, the Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman podcast.
Beth Sullivan is a writer and producer for many successful television series and movies such as The Trials of Rosie O'Neill, Ponderosa, and of course, Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman. She's received a number of awards for her work, such as the Jenny Award from the American Women in Radio and Television, as well as receiving top honors from numerous organizations. Please welcome to the show, Beth Sullivan. How are you doing, Beth?
Fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
How's the weather on Long Island?
Oh my God, it's hot today. It was like 100 degrees.
Oh wow, that's right. You have a heat wave back there.
Yeah.
So weird. The whole globe's going crazy. 118 up in Washington,
Yeah.
or was it in Canada? I mean, it was like crazy.
Yeah, I think we all just have to start heading more north to Canada to cool off a little bit.
Yeah, really.
But yeah, it's pretty hot. I think, Kelly, you're the coolest part of the entire country,
yeah,
I think,
it's
right now.
totally backwards because normally we're the hottest part of the country this time of the year.
It's hot. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been really not that bad. Today was like a little bit more hot and humid, but generally this whole year has been really not that bad at all. It's pretty crazy.
Well, that's good.
So
yeah.
We haven't had any wretched weather yet, but it's only June, right?
Yeah, there's still time.
Well, I've always been a big fan of California weather, though.
Oh yeah, I mean, I know how lucky I am, and I think about it consciously all the time. I walk out in my yard, I go, my God, it's December, and I'm out in the yard, and it's lovely, and I'm doing gardening. It's like, it is amazing weather. It really is.
And Mark's shoveling, so it's
Yeah.
So I guess first and foremost, so we have a podcast named Dr. QuinnCast, which is doing pretty okay right now, and. I'm a new viewer. I didn't watch the television show when it first came out, but Kelly is a seasoned viewer. She watched it when it was still on the air.
Oh yeah, I mean, like when I was young at the time, but I remember watching it when it was on TV, and I always really liked it. And then
Did you
got
watch it with your family?
I did, yeah. So I watched it when I was a kid with my family when it was on, and then I got, I think, more into it, like kind of when I was like a teenager, when I was watching it in syndication, because I was like able to because I remember watching it when I was a kid, but I don't necessarily like specifically remember like really like remembering it, but then like when I got a little bit older, then I was really absorbing it, and I was like really getting into it. I'm like, this is a really great show. And that's like when I really, really became like a solid fan. And then I've just always been like just watching it. It's just like one that I just watch it all the time. I have it on DVD. I like watch it on TV all the time, and it's just been that way for years. And I just like love it more and more all the time, and just never gets old.
And I just bought the
Well,
DVDs.
thank you. It's we all get certain things that are like they become our friends. Certain movies that become your friend. There are movies that I've watched 50 times, and it's just because I put it on. Sometimes when I feel like I want a friend in the room, and there it is,
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's how people relate to the series when you say something like that. It sounds like that. It's good. It's really wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, I'm just so happy to have the opportunity to talk to you about the show, because I have loved it for so long, and it's just such a big part of my life. So it's really great to have the chance to kind of dive into it with you.
Oh, God. Yeah, absolutely. It'll be fun.
But Kelly, do you want to ask our first real question to Beth?
Yeah, sure.
Please.
So first question, where did the original concept of Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman come from? Kind of what inspired you to make it?
Well, it was... It's kind of a mundane story. It was not like a wonderful, oh my God, I have to go and make this. It was because I had done the Trials of Rosie O'Neill for Jeff Sagansky. I had been just a long form I was a long form writer, write movies in the 80s. And in 89, I had done for him a very important film, a TV movie that was super successful that year, and the biggest movie of that year, and it won a lot of things, and blah blah blah. And it was about a legal case, the Tracy Thurman story, and A Cry for Help, the Tracy Thurman story. Anyway, but it was about a groundbreaking Supreme Court decision that protected battered women in a better, way. And so it did very well, and it was have a lot of legal stuff. And so he got a serious pitch to him by Barney Rosenzweig, who's Sharon Glass's husband, Sharon Glass Cagney, Cagney and
Yes,
Lacey.
sure.
Anyway, and he had pitched it to. By the way, I apologize for stuttering, but it's my brain injury. Anyway, let's see. Also, I can't remember anything I'm saying if I interrupt myself. Blah, 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 blah. No, really, zero short-term memory. I mean, just like literally.
You were just talking about a cry for help.
Barney,
Yeah.
Barney. So Barney pitched that and got it, and Jeff said, "Well, who's the heck's going to run this thing? Barney's not an executive producer, and da da da." And I had not executive produced anything at that point. I mean, I was super capable. I had done all kinds of things. I had been on the scene in front of everybody in Hollywood for a lot from 85 to 88, because I was very active in the Writers Guild, and I was one of the people who led the 88 strike.
Wow.
And so, I mean, I had a high-ish profile, in terms of a writer. And but he knew me from to help to fix a project of his wife's. His wife was a producer, and she had a script that was troubling, and I got onto it and helped to save it for her. And she was very grateful. And I think that more than anything, I think she put a bug in his ear. Beth, it would be great to do that. And so I think that I got a lot of opportunities, maybe because of her, like the opportunity to do the Tracy Thurman story, which was a very plum project. And then off of that, he, got pitched this thing about this lawyer, because the thing that Barney Rosenzweig pitched was a great idea, only a one-liner, but a great idea. A rich Beverly Hills housewife is in partnership with her husband they're a lawyer team, Beverly Hills lawyers, and he divorces her for the younger model in the office, and she's pissed off, and she leaves it, and she leaves all that. She repudiates her life, and she goes to get a job as a public defender in downtown LA. And it's a great contrast. She goes into this world, and she's put in an office with, do you know who Dorian Harewood is, the actor?
I do not. Actually.
Well, he's an African-American, wonderful actor. And he was, everybody was younger then. So and they were thrown into this office together, and he just, she thought she was just this dilettante, when's she going to run back to Beverly Hills? And he was a real hard ass. And it was a lovely setup. And anyway, I wrote it. Jeff asked me to create the pilot. And I said, wow, that's
really
nice
exciting.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because 1 hour, and also it had an on-air commitment. Most of the people at that time just developed pilots, and it was a big crapshoot in May whether you got picked up or not. Those days were very different than these days.
Yeah, sure.
And but this was with a guaranteed on-the-air commitment, and I went, whoa, okay, well, this is a very special. It was a real prize that he gave me, and I fortunately was ready for it. My age was perfect. I was seasoned. I was 40. I had just come into, I think, my own as a writer, really at the height of my powers. And so I took it on, and it went great. It got tremendous reviews, and in spite of the fact that it was moved around on the what do you call it, the schedule several times, it still hung in there and did pretty good ratings considering. And I just could not bear working with Barney, who was a screamer. And
oh, really? Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was just, he thought that if he yelled, it made him look like he was doing something, but and yelled at somebody. And he made everybody unhappy and miserable. And I just did not want to be there after the first year. And I went to Jeff and said, I'll stay on the show if you need me to. I'm not going to leave you hanging high and dry. But you know, if you can see your way to let me off the show, I really would like to get off because I really can't stand working with Barney. He just makes every day miserable.
It's a tremendous move because you know, it's a tremendous move to make that decision to step away.
I just didn't want to live like that.
Sure.
You know, life is a little too short for, you know, to be miserable. And also, he wasn't putting me in that position. I assumed the position of defending a lot of people because nobody else could stand up to him without getting fired. Like, he couldn't fire me. And so I was the one that everyone looked to when he'd shit on them, and I would turn and have to say, you know, Barney, that was unfair. Don't do that. You know, and I would have to be the one, you know, in the middle, and it really became very stressful. So I said that to Jeff, and I said, I just don't want to work with Barney Rosenzweig. He said, well, that's okay, because we don't want to work with him either. And I said, oh, how interesting. And I said, so it's okay. But he said, oh yeah, you can leave. And I think at that point it meant that he didn't really want to go on with him anyway, you know, and with the show. So I said, well, okay, you know. And he said, so, but do something else. I said, well, I'm not really 1 hour. I'm long form. He said, well, no, now you've proven that you can do it. Hell, it's great. Do it. You know, do another one. You know. And I said, well, what do you want? And he said, oh, I don't know. And I said, well, what do you need? And he said, the famous words that he's probably the last executive in Hollywood to say these words. He said, I need an 8 o'clock family drama. And really, like 2 years after that, it was like the whole, everything was overtaken with reality shows at 8 o'clock and
right.
You know, Survivor,
Yeah,
you know, all that crap, you know, started coming in. So anyway, but I said, oh, an 8 o'clock family drama. Okay. I said, can I do whatever I want? And he said, yeah, sure, absolutely. You've earned
awesome.
that. I know, awesome. Who gets this on a silver platter? And I said, anything, huh? I said, you know, I love the post-Civil War period. He looked at me funny. And he said, really? I said, yeah. Is it okay if I do a period piece? And he said, yeah, okay, you can pull it off. And I said, yeah, I think I can. And I said, is it okay if the star is an slightly older, you know, not young, beautiful, but you know, late 30s beautiful, you know, star? And he said, well, yeah, and the right one. And I said, okay, well, we'll deal with it. We'll put our heads together. And so that was how it started.
Wow.
He just said, go figure this out. And I had in the back of my mind, I really did love post-Civil War era because so much was happening. So the women's movement was exploding because women came out of the Civil War really upset that they were betrayed in the final analysis. They didn't get the vote, you know, and they thought they were going to get enfranchised along with, you know, the men, all the men, and they didn't. They were still excluded, and they were really steamed about it. It was like, well, we worked in all your abolitionist stuff, and here's what you'd thank us with. Okay, so they were very on the warpath, and it was just a very volatile time that people started striking out and trying things, going into professions, barging their way into colleges and that kind of thing, just really pushing themselves forward and in ways that they hadn't before necessarily, or at least in the same kind of numbers. And I thought that's such a great time, and also I was fascinated with what was going on in the country. The push west, you know, at that time was intense. I mean, everybody who came out of the Civil War wanted to go west and strike it, whatever, rich or whatever,
sure.
You know. And so it was a very scary time for the Native Americans, and you know, because in that push they were completely devastated. I mean, there wasn't I can't think of one really wonderful selfless act that the United States government did toward the Native Americans during that period. But so it was an awful time for that. And I thought, I really need to show that, because you know, what show really shows what it was really like to be going through that, to be put off your land and invaded and pushed and you know, and challenged constantly and insulted and the woman thing too. I said, you know, I could parallel those two things, and I just started cooking it up. And once I thought about that, I thought, well, who's she going to be? And usually in a series they talk about franchises, doctor, lawyer, you know, that And I thought to myself, well, I said, I just did a lawyer. Why don't I do a doctor? You know, and I laughed at myself. And I said, well, yeah, why don't I do a doctor? You know, that's fascinating. I love, you know, that all the medical stuff, and that's interesting to me. And so I slowly pieced it together. All of a sudden,
doctor.
It was Civil War, 1867. She's a doctor. How about, okay, she's a doctor. Where would she? She'd have to be on the East Coast to be a doctor, and a very rare bird that at that. She'd probably. I looked up and did some research, and I found out that 90% of the women that became doctors in that era were daughters of doctors, pretty much.
Oh, that's interesting.
Really interesting.
It was very difficult to become and to get the training and to get the inclination and all that. So it kind of made sense. And they were usually daughters of doctors who didn't have any sons. And so I thought that was interesting too. So anyway, I started piecing that together. Okay, she comes from, her father's a doctor, and they had 5 girls, and they still didn't get a son, and she was the last one that was supposed to be him, you know, but it was him. It wasn't Michael, it was Michaela. And just went off that, and I started building her and the family in Boston and all that. And then I said, well, you know, she's got to go west, obviously, to be able to practice her, you know, craft. And in the process of doing that, she gets exposed to all of the things that I want to show in this, you know, era.
It's a very forward
sexism, racism, you know. You name it.
You know, even now, like I mentioned, I'm a newer viewer to your series, and it's. Even now, when I watch it, I feel as though you're really pushing the envelope. Even back then.
God, yes, we were definitely.
I mean, you can't even compare it to today's television, where it's a little bit more heavy-handed. I mean, your series really does presents it in a way that is not only digestible but really kind of meaningful. So
yeah, and hopefully gives you thought and compels you in your life to kind of ruminate on it and maybe do something about it, you know? Yeah. Hopefully that was the idea.
Well, especially the trials and tribulations of the Native Americans. I think that you present it in a really eye-opening way, especially when the series begins. You have this larger grouping of Native Americans, and then by the end, you know, spoiler alert, who do we have? We have none. You know, we have cloud dancing. It's about it.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's just, you know, it's a real tragedy, and it's something that really happened. Tragic. You know, it's.
We learn from tragedy, though. That's, you know, there's the power of comedy and tragedy. That, you know, you can use both in very powerful ways.
Have you always had an interest in 19th century life and history?
Yeah, kind of. I don't know why. I mean, I think I just always have been I was always a brainy, bookish kid, you know, and loved to read and loved all my class. I was one of those people in school that you hated because I loved every, you know, subject and did well and got A's.
You were smart.
Real smart, you know, and I came out smart. I was reading at 3 and taught myself, you know.
Wow.
And believe me, my house did not have one book in it. I learned to read by reading. Do you know what Photoplay magazine is? It's the equivalent of it's the 1952 or so version of People magazine.
Oh yeah, it's like Look, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was like it was a showbiz, you know.
Yeah.
Photoplay, all the stars. Who are they kissing and what are they doing? You know? and I didn't even know what I was reading, but I taught myself to read the Photoplay.
I know all about Lucille Ball. You know?
Yeah, exactly. But it was, you know, if you're a curious mind, and I was blessed with a curious mind, you do find a way, you know. And once I got to school, well, look out. I mean, once I got to school and realized there were other people who were teaching me stuff and books and everything, I went, oh God, it was like. I loved school. I couldn't wait to go to school in the morning, you know? Yeah.
One of the things that we get asked very often.
Well, that's why I'm saying I was interested in history. I got back to your question.
Oh, sure.
I was interested in history, chemistry, you name it. I was interested in it.
One of the things we get asked all the time from people who listen to our podcast or people who just are generally fans of Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman is that it's difficult to stream. It's not on Netflix and stuff like that. I don't know how involved you are on that side of the business.
Well, I don't have anything to do with
Okay.
that, unfortunately. CBS still handles that. Now,
Mhm.
if I were to take it myself, not the original show, but if I were to continue the show, and then I would be in charge. I own the rights to anything going forward.
I see.
But they own the actual shows that they produced and paid for.
Gotcha. So
Yeah,
it would be
and they control them because they own them.
so it would be a CBS type of business.
Yeah. Yeah, and they've been very lackadaisical and have had a very bad attitude about the show from day
Really?
one. Well, yeah,
Oh.
really, and especially when Leslie Moonves took over. I mean, forget about it. It went into syndication very early, did very well right off the bat. It's still in, I think, 60 countries and in foreign sales. It's a very big around the world. It has a real international following, and I don't understand why they don't. That they just, I think they think it's like that old workhorse that they're not that's not very pretty like the show horse, but that they want, that's how they think of it, that they want to keep in the back stall, and at least that's how I feel like I've always been sort of treated. We certainly never got much fanfare from CBS toward us, and I mean, Jeff was pretty good in the beginning. He gave a big party out at the ranch when, for the syndicated, when the syndication people came to town. And, and he was nice and he was very kind. And when we got picked up, he was, on board. And so, when I say that, I'm saying he's a good friend. I love Jeff very much. And he's a dear friend. And he's helped me at times in my life that were just very important. But I have to just say the truth was, in the beginning, he really didn't get it. The pilot was a 2-hour, so that it could be burned off as a movie and not an actual pilot. But the testing of the pilot back east, where all that stuff takes place in New York, was through the roof. They had never had anything test so high, but by extraordinary percentages, like 300% times better than the highest thing they ever had. And David Poltrack, who was head of that, and I believe still is a big deal in CBS. He insisted that it meant something very different than just something doing okay, because Jeff was sort of suspicious of ratings. I mean, not ratings, but testing. Because he didn't think that it really predicted a hit, because he'd had experiences where it didn't. But David was saying, no, this is not really, well, it did good. It did phenomenally. Okay, this is like a phenomenon that we can't just ignore. So he really pressed his case, and I owed a lot to David. And Howard Stringer back in New York, and a couple of other people, but they really pushed for it, and they managed to get the owner of the network to put it on the schedule at the very last moment. There were people in the room when they were doing the final programming day, and I was told that it was all set, and that the man who owned the network got up. Went up to Wednesday night. It shifted because I really wanted Saturday night, but I think it was Wednesday night. I'm not positive, but it was some night like that. And they said, well, is that it? And he said, well, no, not quite. And he got up and went to the board, took off the 8 o'clock thing, whatever it was on that night, and put Dr. Quinn. And it was like, okay, if you're not going to do it, Jeff, I am.
Did you go bananas?
Well, I wasn't there. I wasn't there, but I heard about it later. And when I heard about it, I went, yes, bless his heart. And I was seeing them at parties in New York and all that. I'm trying right now. Why am I? Tish, was it? Yeah, Tish.
Yeah, the Tish school.
Yeah,
I went
Tish.
there. Yeah.
He was there, and he did it. And I went, wow, God, okay, And when I heard that, and I was just very happy that New York loved it, because New York saw a hit, and Jeff didn't. He really didn't see it until it was one, and and it. But that's okay. I mean, once it was, he got on board.
Yeah.
And before that, even when they said he pulled it off the schedule, he forced to put it on the schedule, and then right at the last moment, he pulled it off and went on in September without it. and they were upset back east and stuff. And so when things started to fall away and not perform well, and other new shows were being canceled, they really pushed hard for a mid-season, preview. Premiere, and that came down from on high back in New York, and that was that. And he was put on the air for the new year. But that's where Jeff really shows his colors. Where he said, okay, it's going on the air. I'm going to program the shit out of it, and he did. He did that. Be putting it on the 2 hour on Friday night. The Friday night of New Year's Day, when everybody in the world is home with their family,
yeah,
or at least home,
yeah,
and put that on Friday night, and then said, and now we're going to slam it into this crazy thing that she's talked me into, this Saturday night thing, which I really had to talk him into. Was very hard to do, but he finally got on board of it, and that's to his credit. Jeff was somebody who could change his mind. He wasn't an asshole who was on an ego trip. He decided, well, I'll try it your way, and we'll see what happens, And he had a flexibility, and a very intelligent man, super educated, wonderfully smart guy, and he said, okay, well, I'll do the 2 hour on Friday night. And then bang, we'll have right the next night before anyone's attention goes awry, and it's the weekend. It's still the New Year's weekend and all that. The next night we'll have the first episode, and
That's
hopefully
amazing.
the pilot will have tantalized people to want to see that. It was almost a precursor of the concept of streaming. I want to see more, and but of course you had to wait a week after that,
yeah.
But it really worked. It really slammed home the show for people, so that after that Saturday night, after that 3rd hour of Dr. Quinn Medicine, people were either sold or not. I mean, so many people said from that moment on, I was a fan, and I watched whatever. But and I think that was to his credit how he really launched us very, very cleverly. Yeah.
very interesting.
We reviewed a number of the early ones, and I noticed that it's a January 1st for the pilot. And I thought it was an error, because, you think January 1st would be kind of reserved, not really for a pilot. And your story is incredible. I think that's
and we were up against two football games.
Oh my God.
And we still won. The pilot came in. They came. I don't know which one came in which, but they came in number 6 and 7 in the top 10 for the week. That's
amazing.
It was phenomenal, and New York went crazy. Oh, we were right. I mean, everybody was crazy. I mean, Jeff was thrilled. I mean, he's not a fool. He was, he wanted the network to be a success. In fact, that show took that network from 3rd to 1st by the end of the season. So he was happy, and everyone was thrilled and pretty happy with me. And I didn't even know happy from anything. I was just working my ass off 20 hours a day, making sure that it got done right. And there was a lot to do. It's a big, sprawling, production outside, lots of horses, lots of moving parts. And, it was just, it was all consuming. And I had a very skeletal writing crew in the first season, but they were wonderful. I had 2 people who were the backbone of it along with me, and another person who really did well. But we were just really working all around the clock to get it written and shot, and and take care of all the quirks and things of people getting comfortable with their roles and with each other, the actors, and making sure that Jane was happy. She was, by the way, never a harsh word, never a tantrum, always knew her lines. She's a dream. And she had certain demands here and there, but they were really rational and very much for the good of the show. She was a real team player, and I can't say enough nice things about Jane in that sense. So I was very lucky to have a star who was not a jerk, and or at least very, very savvy. And she's very smart woman. She knew a good script when she read one, and she knew she was smart enough not to ask for changes just to be asking for something, like she was, wanted. Like sometimes people will change this because they think it makes them look smart. Well, if it's really good and it's really nailed and somebody's done their job and it, it's the smartest thing is to say, this is great. I want to act in it, And I was really making sure that those scripts were, really terrific. I had two wonderful writers, Sarah Davidson and Joseph Anderson, and I had worked with Joseph on Trials of Rosie O'Neill. He was one of the people on that staff. And Sarah, I don't know if you know who Sarah Davidson. Well, you probably don't. She wrote a very very splashy book in the oh God, what year was it? In the late 60s, I guess, called Loose Change. It was a big international, a national bestseller list and all that. And it was a big bestseller. I mean, it put her on the map in a big way. And she did a lot of things, and she developed a couple of her own series that didn't happen, and she felt discouraged, that she got even to making them, and they just didn't do well, and she felt like she failed. And I had met her at a party, and we really clicked. And when it got picked up, she said, "I'd love to be on staff." I said, "Really, Sarah? You run shows. I don't want to do that to you." She said, "You won't be doing anything to me." And I said, "Well, look, I want you to know that I will treat you with every ounce of respect. That you can pipe up on anything, even executive producerial stuff, because you have the chops to do it. So go ahead." And she was terrific. She was absolutely a real collaborator. We just had our heads together all the time. And Joseph, the same thing. He was very good on production. He was he loved being on the set, and he was my eyes and ears on the set a lot of times when I had to be up at the writers' table. And he was also a wonderful writer. And they wrote some fabulous episodes. I mean, if you were to spiel off the episodes of the first season, I could tell you which ones who wrote what. I think he wrote 3. I think he wrote 3. I know I wrote 3. That's 9, and there was only 13. So yeah, we wrote the bulk of them. But there were some other. There were a couple of freelances, and then a couple came from the other person on the staff that we helped. We kind of helped that person because they didn't quite get the hang of it quickly. Because I didn't get any of them from 1 hour. All the 1 hour people I'd read from Rosie O'Neill, I didn't care for. I got all my people from Rosie O'Neill on the staff from. They were playwrights, all of them.
I love the writing.
Except for Joseph, and he had been on Tagging and Lacey, and he was recommended, and he was just a good writer, and I clicked with him too. But most of the stuff I read I didn't care for, and I ended up finding really great writers in out in New York. I brought 2 people out from New York, and I just did it different. I said, what we want is the best right person for the job, and let's find it, and let's not just
Yeah, I love that story. That's
yeah.
Amazing, an amazing backstory to
Well,
kind of how it all launched.
I was just, it was that, I can't stress enough how it was the perfect moment in my life. I had really come into my own and was not afraid to be a leader, and was, just ready to do it and take responsibility and take it on the chin if it meant that. And fine, I'll take responsibility. If it fails, I'll fall on my face. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a good moment because it really needed that. It needed that total, it was a kind of project that needed that total devotion. Otherwise it wouldn't have gotten done, nor would it have kept going,
Right. So kind of to segue from, we're talking about kind of the creation and the original writing of it. There are always rumors of reboots happening, especially nowadays. A lot of stuff is rebooting. Would you be open to, maybe another TV movie, or even like a reboot of
well,
Dr. Quinn?
we've actually pitched a revival. We didn't want to do a reboot. We didn't want to just do the same show, with younger people or just whatever that. We wanted to just pick up. My idea was, if I'm going to do the show as it was, I want to just pick up literally the number of years later that we are, because we did 1 year every season. Everybody knew that, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Each season was a year that passed. And so I said, well, it's 25 years later. We'll just make it 1893. And where's everybody at that point?
That'd be
Let's
awesome.
Pick them up. Yeah. And I said, and the good news is there'll be 2 beautiful grown adult children, Katie, their child, and then I invented a character, Alexander, who was Grace and Robert E.'s child. And I wrote. Let me tell you, I mean, I love people who are excited about something and want to do it. And I had a lot of people on well, it was kind of in the writer's room, in the writer's building. People who had aspirations, wanted to be producers, wanted to be writers. And I mean, when somebody had, something going for them, we groomed a lot of people, and it was a good experience for people that way. And I think a lot of people started their careers on the show too. So I'm not opposed to that. We'll figure out what you can do. I just think that if we're lucky, I mean, I don't right now. There's the only interest I've been able to find. People are saying, "Oh, that's the old." I said, what you're saying is like, "Oh, no one wants to see that." Everything you're saying that why it's not not a cool show right now. That's exactly what they said to me. Back then.
Yeah.
Back
You're like, that sounds familiar.
At 91 when I was, I said, everyone thought I was fucking crazy. I said, what is it? What? There wasn't one period piece on television at the time, nothing that was set in the past except this I was proposing, and a woman lead, on their own with no guy that was a co-star. Right. I mean, there's Sully, who's a love interest, but he was not a co-star. And she was really kind of carry the show. That was also a big taboo. I mean, kind of willing to carry a show. I don't know. I said, hey, I just did one with Sharon Glasses. She kicked ass. I mean, the only thing wrong with that show is her husband. I said, okay. And I've listened to that I wrote the pilot for the revival. I think you're going to love it. I mean, I did 3 drafts, and the 3rd draft really nails it. It was as good as the first show. I mean, it was as good as I wrote that in 19, and we started trying to get, Jane and I both started, we formed a company with a producer friend of mine who's a big deal and has a big company who can guarantee the deficit. In other words, finance that, when you go to somebody, you have to have a deficit partner, and he was able to do that, and he was a big company. So she and I and Dan formed a company, and we went out pitching it, and we couldn't get it situated, so it's kind of lingered for that way for about a year in limbo. And then there was a couple producers that I was introduced to by a really dear friend, and they said, we really want to do that, but we've asked around and nobody wants. I said, oh, I've already been there. Nobody wants to do, and I mean, I have the fucking script, and they read it. Oh, we love this, but yeah, nobody wants to do it. Okay. Same old. And I said, okay, well, that's their loss, and they're fools. But anyway, so, but they said, look, we talked to such and such or this and that one. I won't even say which, but we talked to them, and they said, well, we don't want the old show, but we love the Quinn, the gold that's involved with Quinn, the idea and the money. The name apparently still holds value to people, and so this big couple of big companies that they're the ones you'd want to go to said, do something new with it, reimagine it, and in a more today kind of way, a more reality, a little tougher, a little cruder, a little not so nice. She doesn't have to be such a goody and And when I heard that, I thought, well, they didn't really get the whole show. But yes, there was that aspect of her, but there was a lot of other stuff going on too. But a lot of people just think of it. There are people who lump it in with Little House on the Prairie, right. And not to belittle that show, but it's not Dr. Quinn. So anyway, so I said, okay, well, what do you have in mind? And they said, well, I don't know. Why don't you think about it? They threw out a couple of funny ideas, and I said, all right. And so I've been writing with my daughter now. She helps me. She helps me with my brain injury. It makes it difficult for me to track and remember quickly. I mean, short-term memory and tracking. And she's the perfect complement. She's a wonderful writer, and she's a delightful person, and I couldn't be happier. It's turned into a very good partnership. We're a real team. Beth and Tess. So, and we've been writing, and so she and I have been putting together this, literally as we speak. We're supposed to talk to them at the end of next week. And we've really reimagined it in the sense that I said, I can't do this and call it Dr. Quinn and have it be Michaela and Sully. And I said, the idea of a frontier, tier kind of a guy, well, Native American he's become, and a Bostonian woman who's not nearly as liberal as she was, who has a different name, and he has a different name. He has an Indian name. And I said, the whole spirit of it, the concept, but it's a different show, totally different show. And so I've been fiddling around with that with these guys and with her. And once we finish the treatment for it, we'll see, how we feel about it, how they feel about it, and if they feel good about it, I feel good about what we're developing, and it doesn't step on the other show. It doesn't insult it. It doesn't, anything like that, or disregard anything. And
sounds exciting. It really does.
It could be. Listen, I mean, I think that people should get things like that out there. If it was a success, I'm sure that somebody would pick up the pilot for the thing and pick up Colorado Springs in 1894. I'm sure they would if they saw that the other one did good.
Yeah.
So it might help that in that sense. So we're just taking it one day at a time, one step at a time, and they're very good. They're very good producers, and they're very successful, and executive producers, and I would executive produce with them. They're very nice guys. They have a lot of respect for us, and want us involved and want me involved as to the degree that I want to be, which is really kind and wonderful. And it is an exciting time for me, given that I don't know if you know what the last 20 years have been like for me, but
a bit but we've read about, yeah.
Huh?
A little bit about, we both have done a bit of research about the things that you've gone through.
I was injured catastrophically, as they say. It's a great term. It actually means something. It means like the gross part of what you think it is. Ew, a lot of broken things. Yeah, right. Okay, but it also actually, the term catastrophic in medical means that there's a brain injury and a spine injury.
Oh, really? Interesting.
And that they're both involved, and then some. Then they call something catastrophic. Well, that was me. So, and the brain injury was the hardest thing to recover from. Very, very slow. Right frontal lobe injury is very, very profound, because your right frontal lobe is where all higher, cognitive processes happen. And so it was just a long way back, because there's this condition called anosognosia that someone with right frontal lobe brain injury usually has in the early stages. And it means lack of awareness, literally, lack of awareness. And you aren't aware that you have, you don't realize you have brain injury. And so you can't recover from something you're not even working on to recover, right? So you're kind of lost in space for a long time. And my children were the only thing that got me through those years.
You have twins, right?
Yes, yeah. I had Jack and Tess. They were only 6 when it happened. It happened in Australia. I was filming in Australia, so I was stranded in another country, in a hospital for many, many months, and in a rehab hospital for many, many months, and then in a hospital bed at home for 6 months, and it was, and 2 years of just to get to walk and all that. But again, the brain injury, that stuff was nothing compared to the brain injury, which was just tedious and slow, and unless you're able to get that awareness, you're just screwed. You're in a loop, kind of.
It sounds like you didn't give up. It's one of those type of situations.
I didn't. I credit I'm very lucky to have been born with a strong will and a strong intelligence. And I think that just they kept burning and sort of pushing me toward, I don't know, out of this dark hole, And I sort of, when I sort of started to emerge in 16, I became aware technically that I had this anosognosia thing. I became aware of the word in 2010. That's 8 years after the injury, but would be another 5 years, till 15. Well, I began, 15 was when I started to really become more aware. I started getting that oh, this is me. I see. This is, oh, I did that. Oh, yeah, no, I see, get that. It was all some puzzle parts started coming together. Very, very interesting, weird process. And all that started really in earnest in late 14 and 15. And then we even I got together enough to move back to Los Angeles, which the kids always wanted to do. And I said, yeah, I can handle that. Let's go. And we moved back down here, and I kept working with doctors and neurologists, and 17 was when I had a couple of neurological assessments by two. We're the two of the biggest guys, you know, one at UCLA and one at the Mayo Clinic in Phoenix, and they both had very similar conclusions that I was in fact very much improved from my last, neurological assessment. They call that. That's the big thing that says, where are you at, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the last one compared to my last one in Australia, or no, actually my last one at Stanford, because we'd been back for a while up north, where my parents lived. It was the improvement was incredible. Both of them said that. They said, look, you are capable of writing again, not by yourself, probably. If you could get a partner, but you have the creative, you could do this, you can do certain things. And the more you push, the more we'll find out what that limit is. Let's go for it. And that was inspiring to me. I needed somebody to say, I believe in you. Let's, go for it.
You can go back to being who you were, right?
Yeah. And I really got that support, and my kids also were very behind it, saying, yeah, Mom, you can do it. They've always been a real cheering section. And I just, I started writing with a dear friend of mine. In fact, she was just here for lunch. She lives in San Francisco. She's just down here for a couple of days. But anyway, she's my best friend since college. And I said, he says I can write with somebody, but who am I going to write with? She said, me. I said, what? And she said, I'm retired. This is retired to her. She was a big time historian. She is she writes books that are wonderful, books about Latin American history and current stuff. And she also in her spare time became a psychoanalyst. So she has patients and stuff. And she's just a powerhouse. And she said, yeah, I'll do it every day for a few hours. I said, oh, wow. Oh, awesome. And so we did it on Skype, and or I don't even know if we saw it. No, we didn't even see each other. We did it on one of those programs you can share, like I think it was Final Draft. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we worked together in a distance, and we wrote a script. I said, well, listen, since you're being so nice, what about that project you always wanted to write? And I mentioned it to her. She said, oh, if we could write that together and you would do that. I said, let's do it. That would make me happy to see you doing something you really are motivated, and it would help me to get back on track. And so we did that. It took about a year, and we came out with a really wonderful project that we're now hoping, at the time it was not right. The things hadn't gotten serious enough and in terms of politically stuff on streaming. But now there's a real place for this, and I think we can maybe get it set up, but I'm waiting to get an agent. But anyway,
it's funny. One of my questions was, "What is next?" And it's like you are completely you have such a bright future still to your career. I mean, you have such a wonderful career, but you have stuff. You have stuff waiting.
I hope so. Because I was held back. I was knocked down at the peak of my. God, I was only 52, and I was doing another series, and
Ponderosa, right?
Yeah, Ponderosa, and it was going great, and then I got wrapped around a tree, so that was that, and it's an amazing thing how one little moment literally should change everything for the rest of your life. Although I feel like I've gotten back in better charge, and I think I am going to have some opportunities that are really. I feel really very lucky that I'm going to be able to maybe work again. That's exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's next? I mean, hopefully, this there's a couple things I'm working on with another producer with Tess too. My daughter and I really are a writing team. So I shouldn't say I, it's we. and we also wrote a project on our own to begin with. We just said, well, let's write a script, let's write a feature, just to get in the swing together, you know. Actually, we wrote the first one. I said, let's write one, and it'll be yours. And I sort of walked her through the thing and supported her so that she came out of it with a script. And then we wrote one together. And they said, well, we're ready to do this. And that's when we got lucky with some producer friends that brought us some jobs and some people that were connections to jobs. And that's sort of, we had one paying job this year during the pandemic, and but that was really well. And so, yeah.
Yeah,
and
some moms crochet and you write scripts.
Yeah. actually, I also crochet.
Oh, okay. Double duty.
I do know how to crochet, but I don't crochet anymore. I prefer to knit, but I do knit. Yeah.
Would you be in that sewing circle that was in?
No, I wouldn't. You know why? At this point, here's the thing. I can't do patterns in my head anymore. That's part of my brain can't go, oh, and now I changed to this, you know, now I changed from this stitch to that stitch, and now I turn this corner on the shoulder. I can't do that, but I can go row, 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 and I make a hell of a good scarf.
There you go.
You know, can I ask you, I do have one really kind of I think it's interesting question. So my past comes from publishing, but I worked for Scholastic Entertainment in the late 90s, and I was there. Yeah, I was there when we were launching Harry Potter and
yeah, I knew some people at Scholastic.
Oh, really?
They were wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone I know there is really wonderful people.
Yeah.
And I was mostly with the marketing department. I kind of floated around, but I always wondered, well, not always, as I'm watching Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, I'm wondering, as I go on eBay and look for different types of merchandise, there isn't much. Was this a decision that you had made, like, for licensing?
I should. I mean,
You totally should.
I just don't have the head for it anymore. I mean, that part of my brain doesn't work very well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm serious. The business person who's going to organize all that, forget about it. Organizing, you know, figuring things out, that's not my forte. I have to say I'm not anymore.
Yeah.
And I've been looking and waiting for someone to say, well, and I think I found it recently. This producer that asked us to come on and do a rewrite of a thing of this person he was working with. That's the one we worked on that we got paid for, which was nice. And he is a real businessman, and he's retiring, but he has a lot of energy and I think he's going to help me do some merchandising, because you're absolutely right. It's an untapped market, and I own the rights to all that shit. Any merchandise that's being done, any merchandise that's being done is illegal. I own it. They shouldn't. Can't be. If I challenge them, I could eventually win in court and make a nickel after I paid the lawyers, you know.
I don't know about you, but I want an inflatable wolf.
I'm not going to go that route, but on the other hand, you know, nobody's really doing much of anything anyway. I've looked, and I agree with you, and there's a bunch of things that I would do. Yeah. Not a bunch, but some really things that nobody else could do that I could. And I think it would be very, very appealing to the fans.
I would love to see that.
I think it would be great to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some, and also I've written a book on screenwriting, and I wrote it slowly but surely along the way when I was up north right when I was coming into, like, in 2014.
Yeah.
1914 is when I wrote it. Yeah, that's true. In 2014,
maybe
I wrote
Michaela.
Yeah. And the only way I was able to do that and have it follow, you know, because like I just told you that I can't follow anything straight through, and then I say, oh, I wrote a book. Well, the only way I was able to do that was I very much admire, and I used to teach screenwriting, but I very much admire John Howard Lawson, who wrote a book called The Theory and Technique of Playwriting and Screenwriting. And it's brilliant. It's the best book on screenwriting. It's about playwriting, but it's really about drama, and the best tips about writing a good screenplay are in that book. And I always used to teach it, use that book when I taught. And everything specific about screenplays that wasn't in it, I provided, to the class, to the students. But I thought, well, you know what I'm going to do? I don't really have much. I learned everything that's important from him and Aristotle and wherever. That's they get all the credit. But the bottom line is, it would be useful to have a book that translated that into language that's very immediate and concise, and because Lawson was a massive intellectual, and his writing style is a little unapproachable. It's also written in the 30s, and so it's not dated so much as it is just not approachable, kind of. But the stuff in it is brilliant, and so I said, well, if I just went through literally chapter by chapter, said what I was doing, that everything I'm doing is an homage to him. And in my mind, if his children say they want profits from the books, they can have it.
Sure.
But because I want to use his name and everything, and follow chapter by chapter, and literally, and that's what I did. I followed chapter by chapter.
Inspired to do that, I think.
Yeah, this is what that means. This is what that means, and it's a real workable handbook for somebody can read it and really come out with the nuts and bolts of screenwriting and the brilliance of him behind it, So, and the theory and stuff that he put forth. And that I've written, and I just haven't really put it into a final form, but it's done. I just have to kind of polish it and think about how to publish it or whatever. But I'm like, again, that's just not my forte anymore. I used to be able to do all that stuff, or once I was too busy, I could handle I could get people to do it and communicate with them in a way so that I had control over it, and in a good sense, creative control. And but that's just though I hate to say this because it's really painful for me, but I've gotten to the point where I feel like saying it is the best thing. I just can't do that anymore. And it was very hard for me to say that for a very long time. And I made a lot of advancement in what I could do, though, once I could say that. And I've gotten able to do things, I've discovered what I can do. And I've been pleasantly surprised more often than not. But
I don't think anybody would call you a slouch,
I'm not a slouch. I'm just it's my brain can't handle it. I need somebody who can think business and how to do it, organize it, and I do need somebody to do that. And I really want that to happen about the merchandising and all that, and the book and everything. I like that you brought that up, and I appreciate you for doing that. Thank you.
Well, I'll be there to pre-order whenever it happens.
Yeah, definitely. Me too. We both will.
Yeah. And promote it,
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's, a big audience that's just ready and waiting for that sort of thing.
Well, that's wonderful to hear, and I will put that to, I wrote it down because I can't, I don't forget that. If I repeat something enough, I do remember it. But
I still have my contacts in Scholastic, so I'll be more than happy to pass along anybody if you.
Yeah, well, anyway, there's lots to be done. Yes.
Yeah.
Did you have the opportunity to keep any of the artifacts that were on the show? Are there things that you kept that you just held on to because they were a part of the show and they really just meant a lot to you?
You want to know a very, very painful story about that, okay?
Uh-oh.
I had developed in the last season, I was encouraged to develop another show that they were going to do another show with me. That my agents and my managers and everybody wanted me to do another show. They thought that there were enough people at a high level on mine. I had already promoted, I had 3 co-executive producers and 1 executive producer with me. And I'd made Carl Binder the executive producer in the 6th season. And I felt very confident that I could handle, creating another show and blah, 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 and still keeping an eye on Quinn and everything. And I was being very much encouraged to do that. And so I did, and I developed something for a company that I had an overall deal, and they wanted something that was like, they said, well, let's do a TV version of what's the one where Demi Moore goes into the army.
Oh, Private Benjamin?
No,
different. That was Goldie Hawn.
If you look,
G.I. Jane?
G.I. Jane.
Yeah,
yes,
G.I.
exactly.
Jane. Yeah.
They said, let's do a TV series like of G.I. Jane.
Oh, okay.
And I said, well,
Private pension.
I said, I watched the movie and I said, I like what she's done in this and I admire it, but I don't think a series. This is a movie.
Yeah, it was intense.
This isn't a series.
Movie. Yeah.
A series is going to be a lot of skin and a lot of whatever and flexing and I don't and tough going up against that. I know it's not the way I want to approach feminism and
Mm-hmm.
and he said, well, what do you want to? I said, well, I kind of would be interested to like see a woman try to excel at one of these very, very still masculine strongholds of these military schools, like West Point.
Mm-hmm.
I said that I'd love to see a woman, try to make her way through that and come out, and be treated well and all that stuff, because it was still a struggle at that time.
Sure.
And I mean, I probably still is.
Yeah, I was about to say it still is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. And so they said, well, yeah, that's interesting, good. Like, and they said, check it out, start. And so I contacted first, West Point, because that was my first choice. And I was very lucky that at the time, the they call it the superintendent. The superintendent is like the head guy, that's the 4-star general who runs the whole thing. And it's a very prized position. 4-star generals, it's kind of a thing that you take before you retire. It's a real feather in your cap, and they stay for, a few years or whatever. And it's a prestigious thing. And he was a great guy. He happened to be super liberal. I mean, wonderful, open. Yes, we want this kind of, positive thing, and you say, yes, I like your idea. Yes, I'll let you do that.
Well, it's so surprising. Yeah, you don't expect that with the military.
I was just flabbergasted because he was an angel. And I said, his name was General Chrisman. And I said, oh, well, God, okay, wow, this is an open door. He said, yeah, there's other people who won't feel so open here. And that was true. The second in charge, the second highest ranked guy there was the commandant. And he was Abbasade. He was the guy who led the Iraq war. Eventually. Yeah. So he was like that. He was that kind of
asshole.
army. But anyway, so he was, he didn't love me, but I didn't pay much attention to that. Actually, he did let us play pool on in the middle of the shoot. We shot, because Beast Barracks, the 2 weeks where they come in and go through all the stuff to be initiated, it's called Beast Barracks, and it lasts for 2 weeks. The week before the 4th of July, in fact, it's happening right now, and it's not this year, but anyway, and then the week before the 4th of July, and then the week after 4th of July weekend. And it's a 2-week thing, but right in the middle of it is 4th of July, so everybody gets a breather from all this intense shit, right? And of course, I was up at the level where I'm hanging around with the soup and the whatever, and we're over at the commandant's house, which there's beautiful houses. They're right off the plane. The plane, the big 5-acre marching place. They both face onto the plane, the soup's house and the commandant's house, and they're ancient and history. I got like up the wazoo. Like we got to play in the basement on the pool. We got to play pool on the pool table that I forget how many presidents had played pool on.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
He spieled off the names of people famous. Well, so and so's played pool, and I said, oh my God. Anyway, so I was thrilled. It was a fun thing to do. But anyway, I did that and made a very excellent pilot that got a lot of good feedback, except we had one problem. I was the company that I was getting the money, the financing from had a deal with CBS, so it had to be for CBS. And the leadership at CBS had changed at that point. Les Moonves was in charge, and I kept saying, I don't think Les is ever going to go for this. And they said, no, he will. You make it. And these guys at this company said, no, Les is going to love it. And I said, I don't think Les is going to love it. I think Les is going to hate it. and I think, but also, I don't think Les wants to do anything with me. I was Jeff's girl. He wants to do things with his people. He had around him all of his people he brought all his people from Warner Brothers. He really had a very clannish thing going on there. And if you were somebody he had done business with before, that he would continue to do that. He was a very loyal and whatever you want to call it kind of guy.
Right.
And I was just not, I did not fall into that category. And I was Jeff's find, it's discovery, success and all that. And he just had no interest in doing anything with me. I mean, I found that out when I went in with Mary McDonnell. He had given her an open commitment at the time. This was, I don't know when, back at the very beginning of when he was there, an open commitment. And of course, I was just off of Quinn, and I was considered a big deal, and she was considered very, castable at that point. And he had really wanted to work with her. He liked her a lot. I think he was hot for her, but anyway. But
damn you, men.
But she's a wonderful way. Anyway, but we went in and pitched this wonderful show to him, and he looked at us and just said, "Oh, that's really interesting." And then we heard shortly thereafter, "No, he's passing." It was a wonderful, and it would have been great with her, and blah blah blah. But he just, two powerful women like that, he just didn't want to do that. His kind of women were not. They were strong women who were in his team.
And that's Les Moonves that you're talking about.
Yeah,
and he's
strong
out now, right?
Strong women who are on his team, he loved, but really formidable women who might disagree or whatever, or take credit and or whatever. I'm not trying to badmouth him, because I like Les. I know that's not a chic thing to say, or a cool thing to say. What do you call it? What is that term for politically correct? Yeah, politically correct. Yeah. I know it's not a politically correct thing to say, but I do like Leslie, and he never ever pulled anything on me. I never saw him do anything like that.
Right.
When all that came down, I wasn't surprised in the bigger sense, in the sense of the world, but it surprised me personally. I didn't ever pick up on any of that stuff, with Leslie's. But maybe I was just a jerk. Maybe I was an idiot. People have said I'm naive, and I think it's one of my better qualities.
But a lot of people said that about Les Moonves when it came out about that.
That he was a good guy?
A lot of people just said they didn't expect it to be from him. But I think most people say that about.
It surprised me, some of the detailed stuff. I went, wow, he pressed somebody like that. I was shocked that he would push himself on anyone, because he was an attractive guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, he didn't have to push himself on anyone. He was a handsome guy, super powerful, completely successful.
No Sully, but yeah, sure.
Sully. But he had, he had the world, by the tail, and I don't know why he would have had to force himself on anyone. That's just what surprised me, and whatever. Yeah. But anyway.
So we discussed the pilot that you started doing, but I think we got here from my question about if you had the opportunity to keep any, or did you keep any of the artifacts?
Thank you for saying that. Well, the tragedy was I was in New York during the time that the shows, that's late May, and when I was in prep. Actually, I was in prep. I was my week before I shot, and I was in prep, and I was standing out on the plane, literally, with walking through something with the director, and an Army guy runs out across the field and hands me a note and says, "There's a message for you." And I said, "Oh, okay." I opened it, and it said, and I was told by my agents that they were deciding. It was they said, "Well, there's a sixth season for sure. Leslie's already said there's definitely a sixth season. A seventh season. Don't worry about it." Blah blah blah. And then at the last minute, they said, "Well, he's fudging a little because he's getting pressure from the supposedly." And he said that there'll be some shows for sure, and that you might give you a short order. but you'll get an order and you'll start making shows on time and blah blah blah. And then depending on how things go, then he'll extend the order. He just wants to feel in control. I said, okay, fine, let him feel. That's fine with me. So anyway, so this guy, this little whatever he was, sergeant or lieutenant or no, he wasn't. He was probably a private. Hands me this note, and I open it up and it said, "My agent, so sorry, Beth, but I don't want you to hear it from anybody else. But Les canceled the show."
Oh.
And
wow.
I'm standing on the field with all this, 50 people looking at me. We're on a location scout, and it was one of those moments in my life where I said, "Well, what are you made of?" And I just folded it and put it back in my back pocket of my jeans and went on with what we were doing. And I didn't think about it until I finished the day's work. And you after doing what I did, you develop that kind of discipline, and that was. It's not bragging. It's just saying that you had to do that. Either that or be devastated and fall apart. And I wasn't going to do that. So anyway, but it was a shock. It was definitely a shock to everybody. And there I was in New York, and it was announced, of course, in Los Angeles and at the ranch. And was I there to get anything? Did anyone say? A few people that loved me dearly. Saves a few things for me, but the bulk of what I would have liked to have that day pointed to and say, well, please put that in the trunk, please put that in the car, I'm going to keep that. I think that's important. The bulk of that stuff was just all gone. By the time I got back, it was like after a sale at Macy's, nothing left,
Savages.
Yeah.
That's really tragic.
It was shitty. And a lot of those people, they were good people and nice people who loved me, but they were frightened for their futures. A lot of them took stuff to sell. And one guy made a living off of selling stuff on eBay for a couple of years.
Wow.
Wow. That's crazy.
He had so much stuff and got so much money for it. It was not that I wanted to sell anything or get money for it. I just wanted to keep stuff,
Yeah.
And so I ended up with, and I've told people about this, fans and people who, anyone who listen, and I say, if you find anything or have anything that you think that I would really, like, that I would love to have it back. And recently, one of the women who was in the production office came over and she said, I was going through the garage and I found some stuff. I found this wonderful old carpet bag and the broom that Dr. Quinn always used in the homestead. And I said, oh, well, that's sweet. And she dropped them off, and and it was nice to have some things. I have a few, but not nearly what you'd expect. You don't walk into my house, and the only sign of Dr. Quinn in my house is where I am. I'm in the den, and I have up above one of the bookcases up by the ceiling, above the bookcase, it was built into the wall bookcase. On the wall above it is the framed Mad magazine for cover, and the 2-page thing that says Dr. Quack, Modern Woman. And,
I have that.
yeah, and
that's the thing you sent me, isn't it, Mark?
And to the right of that, in the frame also, is a letter from Mort Drucker, saying, love the show, blah, 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 and we're all on your side, and it's going to go forever. It was a sweet, wonderful letter, because he's the artist of all that. He wrote, he drew all those things, and he was one of my husband's, ex-husband's heroes. So I asked him, I said, would you mind, giving me something, because my husband will die to have something, a letter from you. And he said, oh, absolutely. And he wrote this lovely letter. So it's framed along with it. It's really, and I look up at that and smile, Oh, and another thing, I didn't have this until just last year. When I look to the left now, above the whole TV console, there's a wall thing unit with the TV and everything, and underneath it, pictures and, some books and things, is what do you call those panoramic photographs that kind of wrap around?
I think they're just panoramic.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
that's
okay. What I would.
Well, that's what it is. It's a panoramic photograph that I went to a reunion of the what do you call it? The production staff office people, very very much together even after the show ended. They're all friends, and they had a reunion, and they invited me to it. And one of the guys who was just an assistant, I mean, he ran errands and stuff. He was a very sweet guy, and he came and he said, "Look, what I just wanted everybody to see this." And he had this huge, and it's huge. It's about 5 feet across and about a foot tall.
Oh, wow.
But it's a huge panoramic thing of us shooting downtown. It's taken from probably the side of the saloon that's closest to the meadow, and it shoots straight toward the clinic. But it wraps around the clinic, and you can see on the other side, you can see the meadow in the back, and on the right side, it wraps around. You can see the general store down the street. It's really wonderful, and the whole crew is there. All my people that I love so dearly, they're shooting, and they're at work. All the stuff, all the all the scrims and all the lights and all that shit is up.
But that's so nice. It's candid,
yeah,
so it's not like anybody's posing,
totally,
and it's just a captured moment.
They didn't know this was being taken, and it's wonderful. It's all the guys at work. When I say guys, there's women too. I mean everybody at work.
Yeah.
And not enough women, of course, but I tried to hire women, but believe me. But yeah, and it's us in action. It's really captures kind of what we did every day, and I love looking at that now. I've only had it for about a year, but it's up there, and this is the only one. I glance at that, and I glance at the Mad Magazine thing, and I get a kick,
You mentioned the Mad Magazine thing, and Kelly came up with this idea for this podcast months and months and months ago, and to thank her for this idea, because I am such a fan of the show now. I actually found one of those Mad magazines and sent it to her as a gift. And I don't think you even knew that it existed, right, Kelly?
If you weren't there at the time, you probably would miss it.
Yeah, I don't think that I did know that it existed, but I really enjoyed receiving it, and it was a really nice surprise because it was very. I mean, because Mark and I kind of approach these things with kind of a sense of humor. Like we really, really love the show, but we also like to kind of joke around about stuff. So like I just thought it was so great and really very astute. The jokes that they were making in it, I was like, I know exactly what episode they're talking about. I was like,
knew what they were talking about. They made they took the barbs they took came from a lot of different episodes.
Yeah, so I was really impressed just like reading it. I was like, I know what episode that is. I know what episode that is. And I was just like, this is really well done. This is great. I love it.
Yep, I agree. Totally.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
One of the things that we like to do on our podcast is we're just so fascinated by the characters in the Dr. Quinn universe. And we really are fascinated by the many layers to these characters. And we really like kind of diving deep into that and kind of, getting down to the nitty gritty of it. So we're just kind of wondering with these characters you developed, kind of like, where the inspiration for the characters came from, kind of the trajectories for that.
Yeah, I knew I had to people this town, I knew, and I did my research on what a town was like, that it was small in a rural place like Colorado, and I looked into it, and each town had certain elements that were absolutely required. There had to be a general store. There was a saloon. There was a church. There was a telegraph office, because of communication. The very basics of what had to be there. There wasn't a bank in the beginning, as you know. There wasn't, Preston with his hotel or whatever. All of that stuff. That stuff came later, but the bare essentials of what a town had. That's how I built my cast. I said, well, I've got to have a telegraph officer. I've got to have somebody running the saloon. I've got to have a storekeeper. I've got to have, blah, blah, blah. And so I made the list, and I started creating these people around what they were like. And I based them on, as I do sometimes characters just when I'm writing. If I'm creating something out of thin air, I might think of somebody or make that the main inspiration or whatever, or get the essence of somebody by thinking of a person. And I did that with Lauren for sure. I named him Lauren Bray because that was the name of my grandfather on my mother's side. And he was like that. He was a real, in fact, I chided Orson always. I said, you're making him too nice. This friendship with Brian is going to kill it. The idea that it's going to make him into a good guy. That's the last thing I wanted to do because he was such a prick. But
he wasn't.
Anyway,
he ended up being a good guy.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. I know. That was what the show did. It
Yeah.
made you into a person. But yeah, so I thought of him, and I think I based. This is going to be such a weird thing to say because wow, this is like a scoop because I've never even realized this before. It just flashed into my mind. I think I based Hank on my dad. Sully was called Sully, but that wasn't that's the furthest thing from my father.
Hank is our favorite character, actually.
We are huge Hank fans.
My dad was far more like Hank than Sully. Sully was, to me, both he and she. They had to be completely opposites, and I just wanted somebody. I also had to build in. I thought this was encouraged by a lot of people, but they were wrong. I mean, everybody said, "Oh, you can." The show's over when they get together. You can't get them together. I said, I can't. It's starting to feel really phony keeping them apart,
Right.
And I don't want to do that. I mean, they're going to get together, and if the show crashes, then fuck, I'm not going to. I'm just not going to lie, and they wouldn't be doing this. It has to be truthful and honest. So I pushed for getting them together at certain points, and again letting them get married at the end of season 3, and I don't know. Our ratings actually went up in 5 and 6. They started back up a curve, and we held steady. We never dropped below 50, and 50 is a very respectable place on that ratings in those days, and we were often or the beginning we were all up in the 10s and 20s regularly. But then the viewership changed, and I don't know what happened. I really don't. People just, I think, get interested in new shows or whatever. I'm not sure. But anyway, maybe you could reflect on that. I'd be interested to see what you have to say. But anyway, you asked me a question. If you tell me what it was, I'll try to get back to it.
I think the question was just kind of, you already kind of touched on it, the inspiration of the characters, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I can. Yeah. I'm sorry. The character.
Yeah, that's fine.
Michaela is me, absolutely. Period. She's a, and I gotta say, she's. I'm not nearly the prude or whatever that she was, but there is a part of me that is like that. There is, and so I mean, I could find that person basically in me, the officious one who's always right and always speaking up and jumping into the leadership and trying to make everything right, and all those things that are qualities that are good and also bad. And I just thought, well, that's me, and I'll just try to bare my soul as much as I can and through her. And that's for sure. She I identified totally with her and wanted to speak through her. And let's see, who else? Hank was more like my dad. Dorothy was like my mom. Actually, Dorothy was like Dorothy, very much like Dorothy. And I don't think I don't think she modeled her on my mother or anything. I think that she thought of all that herself at the beginning. I don't think she'd ever met my mother when she created the character, the actress Barbara Babcock. But I mean, embodied the character, I should say. I created the character, embodied it. But she did meet my mother later, and she did study her a bit on set whenever my mom and dad would be around. And she did put certain things in. But Dorothy was a lot like the real Dorothy and my mom. And let's see, who else? Helene was plucked from my imagination, truly. I knew that I wanted to have a prostitute. I didn't want to be, I wanted it to be the heart of gold, but I didn't want it to be the cliche. I wanted to do, something a little daring, like let her have gonorrhea in the pilot,
Yeah.
And, for a family show, I got away with a lot, I have a problem down there and nobody blinked,
Yeah.
And so that was basically how the show did everything, as you well know. And that's why it's smart and says a lot of things, but doesn't rub your face in it, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just invented her out of thin air, and really the truth is she was probably one of the wispiest characters in my mind, in terms of my vision of her. And when they came in to read, people came in to name actresses came in to read for that. Not big name, but I mean people who had done stuff and I recognize and knew their work and stuff. A lot of people, you know, wanted that part. And Helene was just a beginner that my casting director had seen at a some kind of workshop, not workshop. What are those things where they put people
like a showcase?
Showcase. Thank you very much. Yes, he saw this girl at a showcase, and he said, you know, I don't know. He says, I saw this young woman at this showcase last night or the night before, and she just, I don't know, I can't get her out of my mind. She had a quality. I keep thinking of her as Myra. I said, well, bring her in. He said, well, she's never done anything. And I said, I don't care. And I said, just bring her in and we'll see what happens. And that's Helene.
And we love her character. We love the Myra character so much.
She was fresh down from Canada. She's French Canadian. And she was just, and as she said, she walked into Hollywood and bang, you know, this happened. And she just, we talked to her, she goes on and on about how it changed her life so completely. And that's really just great. But anyway, what I was trying to say is that she really showed me who Myra was. I didn't really have an image or picture, and she made her delicate and strong and sexy and innocent, and she brought all sorts of shades to her that I wanted, and but I hadn't put it in the script. She put it in the character, and I have to give her such credit for that. Same thing goes for Orson, to some extent, in terms of, you know, he made Lauren Bray, you know, even more quirky than the guy really was, and put his own stamp on. Everybody did really put their own stamp on their characters, and very brilliantly. Let's see, Henry Sanders had been a dear friend of mine since film school, and I had produced a film. A master's feature film project of a friend of mine while I was still at UCLA in grad school, and he starred in it, and we all just became friends, and it was like, well, if we ever make it, we're all going to help each other, you know. And it was just when I said I want to have minorities in this town, and you know, that's just going to happen even if they weren't there, because people say, well, Blacksburg had to live other places. I said, I don't give a shit. I'm just going to do this because
this is my
I don't want to have to show them once in a while out in the slum. You know, I don't want to do that. Yeah. I want to, you know, give a good. And I've been thanked by so many people for a strong Black, you know, married couple, a woman and a man, who had, you know, integrity and intelligence. Yeah, I mean I think it was a good decision.
Really, two deep characters too. There's a lot of substance.
Well, they brought a lot of shit to it themselves. They really did. I mean, I think I wrote them well, but I think that they also really fleshed them out beautifully. I mean, some of those character quirks that Grace has were absolutely not in the script. She really brought her to life. And same thing with Henry. I pictured Henry when I was writing it even, but he still surprised me. You know, I wrote it for Henry. He's the only actor that I wrote the part for. I mean, I was writing and I knew I was going to cast Henry. So that's a quirky thing there. Now Horace, Frank came in and delighted us. He read it and I went, oh, that's who Horace is. Okay. And I said, I don't need to see anybody else. And they said, really? I said, yeah, this guy is Horace. I love it. And he just nailed it, you know, and not that his quirks were in the script, but he brought something really to what was in the script, that the whole thing with the ear wax and all that, he made it so, as you well remember, so
He's
so
a great
charming
character
and so,
too. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about Horace before, and that he just is really kind of funny and charming, and
Yeah.
he's just has this like kind of innocence about him, and he's
Yeah,
like a
and,
little bit
the
simple.
interesting thing
I don't
is-
mean that in a bad way.
The interesting thing is he is nothing like that in real life.
Uh-huh.
He's a very smart, serious guy who does all kinds of deep roles, and he's he plays all kinds of stuff, and he's a very serious actor, and works a lot, and that role for him was just shows how good an actor he is, really.
And the Reverend is a solid character. He's such
Who?
The Reverend. He
the Reverend. The Reverend. Excuse me. I did write the Reverend. That's another part I wrote with someone in mind. Jeff was on Rosie O'Neill. He played. I don't know if you ever saw Rosie O'Neill, but he was the effete, snotty son of this rich lawyer whose father was making him be a public defender for a year after law school to try to teach him some things, and he resented the hell out of being there, and he was this snotty asshole.
I totally see that.
And he did it so brilliantly. It was just, I loved every second that he was acting. It was wonderful. So I wanted him to do something, and it was either the Reverend for him or Jake, and I didn't know which it was going to be. And I thought, and Jim Knobloch was also on Rosie O'Neill. They were both. What am I saying? There was another two. Both of them were on Rosie O'Neill, and I thought Jim was really terrific. And
the Jake character is really great. It really is.
Yeah, I didn't get involved with him until after he was cast. You have to know that. Not long after, but certainly
romance. But yeah.
But anyway, so they were both came from Rosie O'Neill, and so they were, I did think of those two for those two parts. I just didn't know who was going to do what until the last minute. Right. I don't know why. I think finally I thought that Jim had more of a capability to make people dislike him, and Jeff was just so. Now he could be he's an actor and he can do anything, and I'm not insulting him. He could have played Jake and played the hell out of him, but Jim was just more suited to it naturally, and Jeff was more suited in the other direction. And I couldn't see Jim at all as the Reverend, so I said, "Oh fuck it, that's that." And and Jeff was perfectly happy. He says, "Oh, I love that. I'm fine with that." He said it's not as showy, but that's the acting that goes on in those non-showy parts are sometimes more fascinating and interesting and blah blah. So he was happy, and they both were happy. And so who else was there?
Well, I was going to say, one of the things that Kelly and I run into from time to time is where you absolutely love a character like Hank. He's doing the right thing and he's this great guy, and then he punches a horse.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these characters that you've developed, sometimes you love them and then sometimes you hate them. Genuinely, you don't know what to expect.
That was in him,
Yeah.
And if anything, I gotta say he was based on not only my father, but my father. That part of him was based on my cousin, and my cousin was my favorite cousin of my whole life. That we were the closest was Mike. His name was Michael, and I named her after him. And his children, he's Michael Bray. He's Mike Bray, and his children are Colleen, Matthew, and
get out of here! Really?
No, it's Colleen, Brian, and Matthew. Those are his three kids.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, that's what I did, and about the same ages too. I hit the ages about right too in terms of yeah, and
I love that.
And, yeah. Oh, Brian, the youngest one, who was, the kid who was Brian, the real Brian, I should say. We had really a lot of fun at school. Apparently, he was like a little celebrity because he was Brian.
Oh,
It was really cute. The kids who watched the show, he told me that. He said, "They think I'm." I said, "You are the real Brian." He said, "Oh my God." Anyway, so it was cute. But that's who I based those people on. And the kids and even Michaela. I mean, she's really me, but I gave the name of my cousin because I loved him so dearly, and I still do love him dearly.
would love to take your whole night away, but it's just I feel like we.
You can. You absolutely can. I'm not doing anything tonight. I really don't have plans. You can go on for a while. I've got the energy. I can last another hour or so.
That's how our show goes, actually. We go on and on and on.
We're kind of known for like these marathon recordings.
When do you go on?
Well, we pre-record them and release them.
Oh, pre-record them.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're saying you want to go further?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. We
Oh, okay.
if you're giving us the green light, that we're going to keep going.
Oh, that's fine with me. I mean, I'm not one who dwells in the past, as you know from what I'm saying about what I'm trying to do now. But still, it's fun to remember these good. It was a very all-around, excellent, fabulous experience, and I've heard that from virtually everybody. The actors say I've never had a show that I felt better on. The crew, everybody says it. It was a very happy atmosphere. I created an atmosphere where I hugged everybody all the time, told them they were fabulous and loved them all, and I did, and it was from my heart. And it just set a tone. I mean, it made everybody feel appreciated and happy and upbeat, and it was a good set, and it was a great family. And we still get together, at reunions, and it's a great thing. It really is. It was a wonderful experience. The building we did, the writers' building, is still there. It's turned in. It's their center. Their what do you call it? Their park center. The National Park Center now. And we told them that they would leave it for them if they'd let us take this ramshackle old building that had a slab. At least we didn't have to get a full. It gave us ability to do it without a full start from scratch building permit. So we just raised it and made a lovely. Building that had a real central, windowless core room for the writer's table and all the boards on the wall. And around that were all the doors that went to the writers' offices. There were 6 little offices off that, and then my big one. And the office next to me was my assistant, but when the kids were born, it became their nursery because it had an adjoining door. And he moved out into the room next to that. We shifted around a few things in terms of receptionists and this and that.
The Walt Whitman episode, was that based around the same
Which one?
The Walt Whitman episode. Was that based around the same time when Ellen DeGeneres came out?
I vaguely remember that being an issue that either she came out before us or we did that before she did. Mm. I think there was a joke that we made the way for I think I remember that we paved the way for Ellen, which is not true. Ellen was going to do what she was going to do no matter what. I don't even know if we came before her, but if we did, it wasn't anything to do with.
But do you remember what a big deal that was? I mean, it was tremendous.
Yeah.
And also, I would imagine that you might have gotten the same type of pushback from a number of people with the Walt Whitman episode.
Certainly there were a lot of people who were viewers who were like John, had very, extreme positions about, and I know we had viewers like that, and I'm sure there were people who objected. But by the time we did it, I had established, I thought, and I think it shows the fact that the 4th and 5th season, our ratings went up after the 3rd season. The 5th and 6th season. After the 4th season, we kind of leveled out in the 4th, and then we went up a little and up again a little bit. I think that showed that people were accepting the fact that once in a while they were going to see something that, that's, we don't agree with that or whatever, but that's too liberal or this or that. But basically, I like the show anyway. I felt like I had gotten to the point where it wasn't gonna make anybody never watch the show again. I thought it might make people turn it off when they realize what this one's about, but I didn't think. I remember saying this around the writers, but I said I don't think this show is going to lose us viewers, because there were a couple of people who said, "Oh my God," I said I don't think we're going to lose viewers because of this show. I don't think people are going to not tune in again because we did this. The way we're handling it is so smart, and it's all about Brian and da da da. And I said, and besides, we haven't made it about about homosexual. We're not saying homosexuality is good. We're saying homosexuals aren't pedophiles. That's what we're saying.
Right.
And that was the premise of that show. And I said, that's a very different thing. and we're not driving something home that's like, we're not saying, oh, it's cool that he's a gay guy. We're saying, gay guys aren't child predators. There's far more heterosexual child molesters than there ever, far more percentage wise,
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, let's focus on that, and we'll get out of it alive, and I think we did. I mean, I don't know. There probably were some people that said, I'm sure there were people who probably didn't want to watch it because they realized what it was about. Right. But I just can't believe that it stopped them from tuning in the next week,
But it's, it's also, the times have really changed. We can actually have
and I think people, when that stuff happens, it's in the air, it's in the zeitgeist, and people are kind of drifting that way, and they don't even know it. And because I got a lot of letters about that said, I'm somebody who doesn't believe in that, but I think it's time that we accepted everybody. I did get a lot of good letters like that. From people who didn't, prove, who were very conservative,
And it's proof that Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman was a very forward-thinking show, oddly enough being based in the 19th century, but still a very forward-thinking show. And taking on certain topics that maybe, showing it in a 19th century manner, maybe making it more digestible for general public.
Definitely. Well, that was our goal, trying to be relevant without being too cute or too overly politically correct. We didn't want to hammer anything over anybody's head, so we always tried to make the situation dramatically compelling, so that was really the primary thing, was the story, a good story that was entertaining. And I said, that's always first. And then if we can say something in the course of it, that's nice, we will. But, it's the icing on the cake. It's not the cake,
Would you mind talking a little bit about, this is more of from what I understand to be a more controversial thing, but the Colleen debacle, like the switching of the Colleens.
Yeah.
No.
It was not a debacle. It really wasn't. It wasn't. What do you mean by debacle?
Well, I think the fans might think that there's a debacle.
I think you're right. I think they do.
They also choose which one is better dressed. That's Colleen too.
Yeah.
And
there are a lot of polls, like in the Facebook fan groups and everything. People are always kind of debating the two Colleens and
which one's better.
Well, I mean, ask me specifically, like, why did it happen, or how did it happen? What do you, or the whole thing? What do you want me to say? And what do you want to ask?
Kelly, do you mind asking? I think.
Well, I mean, like, really, what is their question, Mark? Just kind of how it all came about, like why they switched.
The whole thing. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
I don't want to say anything bad about anybody, but there was someone in this that was just not on board. Okay. Well, I can't really tell you the story without saying this, and I hope that Erica doesn't hear this and get pissed off or something, but her father was not really on board with her being on the show. And he had whatever, I don't know exactly what troubles he had with it. I have my own opinions, but I'm not going to tell you. But I can say that he was not on board about being on the show. He didn't have the spirit that we all had, and he was just
his own opinion. I mean, I guess he had a different focus for his daughter. Maybe that's all.
Yeah, I guess so. And he really put pressure on her, and I don't know exactly or specifically what he said to her or told her to do, but she now claims that it was her idea. I personally, I know that it came from him. I don't think she wanted to leave the show. I don't think that. I've heard her say that a couple of times, but I've heard her say other things too. I really don't think she wanted to leave the show. She loved everybody, and she was having a good time. I think, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I stand, I don't know. I can't say for sure. But I do think that her father was the source. Maybe she became disgruntled because of him or the situation or the tension or whatever. I'm not sure. But she finally did come to my office and talk to me and say that she didn't want to stay on the show, that she was leaving the show. And I said, oh, well, have you really thought about this? I mean, I said, just Erica, do you want to be an actor? I mean, is this disillusionment with acting? I mean, you said, oh, fuck, I made a mistake. I don't want to be an actor. I hate this. And she said, no. I said, well, you mean you want to continue acting? You like it? Yes. But you don't want to stay on our show. That hurts my feelings. Yeah. Tell me what's wrong and I'll try to fix it. And she said, no, it's not about fixing it. It's just I just have to leave. And it was very cryptic. And I said, well, I'm sorry about that. And I would, if you tell me, if you have complaints or problems, I will do my very best to address them. And you know that I will. And you've seen me do it with other things. And she says, yeah, but no, it's not about, I have to leave it. And it was all, like I said, very cryptic.
Right.
Which made me think it was really coming from the fact that I think her dad wanted to move and get her out of the business and move to, I think they moved to Oregon right after that. I'm not positive about that, but I think they moved somewhere like Oregon or wherever. And got into a whole different life, and it was sad, because we all liked her very much. And I said to her, listen, think about this very carefully, Erica, because you have an opportunity here. If you really want to be an actress, this is your diving board. This is your launching pad. I said, you've landed this plum thing that's become a hit. Give me a break. I mean, you're Colleen. I mean, the whole world is watching Colleen, and you can turn this into a real career and get, after this show's done, go on to important work and have a credential,
right? I mean, this is
and have credentials, right? And she didn't respond really. She sort of had her mind made up, and I said, I wish you'd reconsider. And I said, I just feel like this is coming from your father, and she got very defensive about that. And I said, well, I'm going to say that because I'm trying to get you to, do the right thing for yourself, and I'm not your mother. I can't say do this, and but I really want to advise you strongly that you're making a huge mistake. And that's not just because you're leaving my show. I will recast Colleen if I have to. I won't kill you off. I won't whatever. I will recast it, and I will do it successfully. And it's not because I think that you're an interchangeable part, a cogs in a machinery, but I'm not going to let you take my character from me. I'm not going to let you walk away with, And I said, so I will replace you and all that, but I don't want to. I really want you to be Colleen, and you should consider this much more carefully. Why don't you think on this? No, I don't want. I'm done. I've made up my mind. And the fact that I pressed her as strongly as I did about, my God, don't do this, Erica. Don't do this. Don't make this mistake. Stop. I'll forget you ever said this. What's wrong? What do we have to do? Let's not do this. Let's not go here. And not on my own behalf, yes. The show's behalf, yes. But mostly, and I said this, I don't know if you believe this or not, but I am talking mostly about your welfare and your good right now. I said, this is a big, big mistake for you. And she just thought I was, I don't know. She talked about it later like I was bullying her. And I thought, okay, well, that's how she read it, felt it. And that went out, and people thought that I, did something to make her leave. I said, no. If she reacted how I acted because she said she was leaving, that's different. But I had to disabuse a lot of people of thinking that I had, been hard on her or something. I was just firm about saying, don't do this.
Right.
And indeed, what happened was they did move away for a while, but into the show, like maybe we'd be casting in the later seasons, and I'd see Erica come into the same casting building, going into an office down the hall to read for a small part on another show.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, oh my God.
The choices people make.
She must realize, she must realize now that this was oh my God, I mean, poor thing is having to read for shitty parts, for little nothing parts, and not get them sometimes, and most of the time, or whatever, as is with all actors, Yeah,
it's a tough business. That's why when you do get this opportunity to be in something and you are actually in that role,
yeah,
it's something that's
it's a big. I said this is a one of the prizes in life. You've got a prize at only 14 or whatever the hell she was. I said you've done this at such an way. Enjoy it, embrace it. Make the most of it. And I couldn't get through to her. But anyway,
you fulfilled your promise.
And then, like I said, we would see her a few years later reading for parts, down the hall, and whatever.
But you did fulfill your statement by replacing and getting a new Colleen, which ended up being a pretty solid replacement.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I was not going to let anyone steal a character that was important to me.
Sure.
And important to the show. I was not going to have to kill her. I said no. The fans and people said, oh, you have to. The fans will never accept the new Colleen. I said, yeah, they will. I said they will.
I refused to. No. I refused to. It took me 2 episodes.
Did you not like her in the beginning?
I was shocked. I didn't know when it was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. Kelly said it's going to happen. It's going to happen, and it happened. And I thought, no, Colleen won. That's my girl. And 2 episodes in,
I loved Colleen Bunn. I mean,
me too.
She had a sadness in her soul.
Yeah.
That was so perfect to make that girl so heart-rendingly appealing. And that was a sadness that was real in her soul, by the way.
Yeah.
And then she had plenty of reasons to be that sad and wistful. And
I think they were both wonderful, to be honest with you.
Yeah, exactly.
They're both great in their own ways.
Totally different.
Yeah.
And I did that on purpose. I said, well, I like this girl. And I said, well, she's not. I said, that's exactly why. I said, I don't want to try to approximate or, let's just go in a completely different direction and say, this is Colleen now. Let's go, and let's go for it. And that's what would happen if I wrote it in the beginning and had cast her, she would have created the Colleen that she's now going to create. And that's just the process, and everybody has to just go along with us. It's the trials and tribulations of the show, and our fans are just going to have to ride the same train we are on, And I said, and I think they will. I don't think anyone's going to hate the show or not tune in because, Colleen left the show. And everyone said, well, did you drive her away? And I said, and I tried to making it very clear that I said, I'm not blaming her, but she did leave the show of her own free will. She came in and said, I'm leaving the show, and it was her and it wasn't someone in disguise. It was her, and she said it, and that was that. And what am I supposed to do? Be happy about it? No, but go on, and that's what I did. I mean, I had to be pragmatic almost every second of the day, and when making that show, because it was so big and sprawling, and there were so many things that had to be looked after, and so many people too that had to be looked after. Everyone called me mom, or yeah. I mean, it was the crew all called me mom. I swear. And
it sounds like it was a really great close knit.
It was. I mean, I shouldn't say that not every single person on the crew called me mom, but a lot of people on the crew called me mom.
Right.
And but it had an atmosphere, but I was, at the center of a lot of pressure. So anyway, Colleen is sad, but I was very happy that Jessica kept her chin up and showed up and created her Colleen and never got down or weird about anything. And she was very good to work with and a real pro and it was a delight. And everyone, after a year, it was all a thing of the past,
So We have one final question for you. I just wanted to know if we can. This is a little bit lighter, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been just kind of flipping through channels and kind of come across Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman on television with your family, maybe, and you just kind of sit there and watch it?
One time I was somewhere else and it was on. I was in a hotel. And I would turn the TV on and flipped it, and like the third or fourth thing that came up, I go, oh my God, I can't get away from it. But I laughed, and I think I did watch it just out of fascination, just
Pretty
to see
surreal,
what, how it is. What is it like when you're just a person in a hotel room and turn on the thing,
And that's your thing.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
But the thing is, you have to realize it. It's hard to realize when I'm about to say, but by the time it hits the screen, I have seen that movie, which this episode I'll call it a 1-hour movie. I've seen that movie 20 times already, because I started a story and then a beat sheet and then an outline and then a first draft and then a second draft. I was buck stopped on my desk for everything. And once I said, yep, this is it, go, and so I would see it at least, I don't know, a dozen times at the script stage, and then I watched every frame of it be shot, so I don't know how you even equate that with how many times you've seen it, and then in editing, over and over again, to watching stuff to choose the right take and the this and the that. And then finally getting a rough cut, or first of all, seeing the director's cut. The director gets a cut before I do. And seeing the director's cut and then saying, oh, okay, well, now we got to cut it for the show, not the directing. And that would be my job. So, So you keep changing the channel then. You're like, oh, let me watch. I'm going to watch The Office. I would watch it just for fun. I think I'd watch it for fun. Yeah. But there's nothing that I wouldn't be. Everything I'm seeing only on the. I'm looking at my TV screen, it's blank now. Right? I'm thinking, what if it was on? I would probably be thinking about, when we shot that, it was, oh my God, I remember so and so fainted or whatever. I mean, there would be because we had really hot days out there, and I bet. I would probably remember what was going on behind what you're seeing, because I was aware of everything that's not on the screen. And I have a different perception of what's on the screen, because I'm standing there surrounded by everything else and experiencing that when I see it, rather than just looking at the screen flat and with this picture. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, well, you understand how the sausage is made, so.
Yeah.
I'm just eating the sausage, and Yeah. But Beth, we want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this tonight. We really so honored.
If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe to Dr. QuinnCast in iTunes